Hey class, welcome to the week 5 stress activity tutorial. Uh, just going to go over some instructions and give some kind of example too of some of these assignment, whichever one you decide to choose, whatever method you decide to choose. There's 3 to choose from on completing this assignment, so just some flexibility in this assignment itself. Make sure you click on these. This first one's going to go over the assignments if you choose you choose to do a Pinterest, and this one goes over the general assignments um, overall. So if you click on that one, you'll see here that there's 3 ways to complete this assignment. You choose one, okay? PowerPoint, Pinterest, or newsletter, and I'll go through each of them specifically. Just make sure you are using sources that are credible. So make sure you're using credible sources. If you use TED Talks and some of these assignments, you use a textbook as one. You could use always try to use something scholarly. Okay, make sure you double check the source and that it's not. Do not use like Wikipedia or websites that are not credible. Okay. Um, you don't turn in this sheet itself. This is just the directions. So like for instance, when you look down here at this part, you'll see the question, the what it says. Once you have chosen your format, you have to make sure that these 5 at the bottom, I expanded it for you. These 5 here are in the assignment. So if you choose a PowerPoint, make sure that these 5 sections here are completed. You're going to have examples that cause stress. You're going to describe healthy coping mechanisms. You're going to do warning signs. You're going to do short-term effects and long-term effects. So like if you're creating a PowerPoint presentation, you should have slides based off of these right here. So obviously that would be 5 slides if you do one for each of those, but you need at least a minimum of 12 slides. So you might double up on some of these slides here, as you're expressing some of the causes, concerns, and coping mechanisms. You want to make sure that these 5 sections are visible in the assignment. Same thing with Pinterest. Make sure these 5 things are in there too. And the Pinterest directions, I'll show you in a second, are a little different. So let's go ahead and start with the PowerPoint assignment, just to kind of go over that. For the PowerPoint, again, make sure you're careful with pictures. Make sure there's more content than pictures. If you take a picture from a website and pass it off as bullet points, it's no credit. You have to type the bullet points yourself. Um, the PowerPoint formation, um, the way it looks like and how it's supposed to be formed is no different than the CLC assignment that you guys did a few weeks ago on bullet points following the 6x6 rule. I'll show you the example in a second. Be careful with the pictures because sometimes if you use certain pictures, when you try to submit the PowerPoint, it'll say file size too large. Then you'll have to delete the photos to submit in the Dropbox. So be careful with that. Okay. But again, there's really nothing different here. You got your presenter notes here. Notice how there's bullet points. There should be 6x6 rule, no more than 6 words, no more than 6 bullet points no more than 6 bullet points, and then each bullet point shouldn't have more than 6 words. Okay, but of course you could have subsets here, keep it nice and organized. Um, this is the best example to use. If you use pictures, again, make sure that you cite the source. Make sure you also have bullet points. The picture the will never overtake the slide. Now for the Pinterest board, there's other specific instructions right here on how to complete it because this is the actual worksheet actually. So if you go back to the directions, you want to make sure you read these very carefully and follow what it says here, okay? But when you're ready to actually start the assignment, you're going to click on this other worksheet here, and this is what will pop up. And this is where you're going to type your responses on here. You're going to have a Pinterest board, and you're going to place the link right here in this area around here. This is where you place the link, and then let's see here, and then below here you'll explain each pin. You'll have 10 pins. They'll discuss stress, like stress triggers, coping mechanisms, strategies, stuff like that. Um, And then for each pin you have, you got to come here and have an explanation. So there should be 10 pins that you'll get from the directions, um, and then that you'll come up with two. And then also, and again, what I mean by what the directions say is you got to come here and make sure that these five things are visible. So you're going to have, a pen about coping mechanisms, stress. You'll have a pen about warnings, short term and long term, and you can double up again here. You need 10, so you need to have, maybe you'll have two different, maybe one's about like, and I'll show you an example. Somebody did something about happiness chemicals and stuff like that, workplace stress. So they added some stuff on top of these five, which is fine because you got to have a total of 10. Okay. So you could be creative, but make sure these five are at least on there. And also notice how it says schoolwork, family, job, relationship. You could throw those on in there and mingled with those other five as well to come up with the 10. Let me just go ahead and show you the example. One of the best examples I've seen on this assignment is this one here. A lot of times students will lose credit because they don't explain each pin enough. But notice here, like, and this example didn't have it outlined yet, but here's one pin talking about happiness chemicals, and notice how it's very, very lengthy, and there's also citation at the end. So each pin description needs to have a citation because these pins are not about what you think about these areas. It's what research states. Here's hidden anxiety triggers. Then there's a citation after the discussion. Same things with triggers of stress, coping with work stress, major causes of stress. So this student did a really good job of putting what stress is and how you can recognize in yourself, best ways to cope. But notice how all each of the 10 pin descriptions are cited. And then you also got to have the reference page down here. Okay. So you have to reference what you cite and cite what you reference, which means if you just have references and no citations, you didn't use those references. So that's at least 15 to 20% point deduction. You have to do both. You have to place them in a reference page and you have to cite them in the body of work. Okay. Let me show you the Pinterest board real quick. So here's a Pinterest board. It's kind of cut off. Happiness chemicals, recognizing stress and self. Notice how some of these is the stuff you saw on the previous page where it shows the pin descriptions. So you'll have these pins and then you have corresponding pin descriptions on the paper. You turn in both by putting the link on the very top of that sheet of paper that I showed you, which is this one right here, where it says persistent link for Pinterest board, and then you have your descriptions. So it's a really good assignment to be creative. So show your creative side, and I really enjoy these. So you'll have a lot of fun with that. But that's a good example. Make sure the discussions, the analysis on these pins are very thorough. The assignment's not so easy where you create a pin and you write one or two sentences. Even if you cite that, you'll lose points big time or no credit for writing just a couple sentences. It should be a thorough discussion of what each pin is, okay? So that's what that looks like for the Pinterest. Now, I don't have an example of a newsletter because I don't get them a lot. And when I do get them, just like the Pinterest, a lot of times there's not an example I've seen yet, but I do want to share some where you can get it at. This is the templates.office.com area. You could just Google Microsoft Office templates. And if you scroll downhill, you'll see that there's a lot of different things you could use. This brochure one you'll actually use at the end of at the end of this 7 weeks in week 7. So keep that in mind. And I'll remind you again. But here, right here is newsletters. So if you click on this, you'll pop up an area where you can download on Word um, these templates. You could choose a newsletter, and just again, when you choose newsletter, you can come up to the directions and make sure these five things are visible in a newsletter. Make sure there's citations. The reason why I haven't had a student successfully, oops, wrong one. The reason why I haven't had a student successfully complete one of these is because they've never used sources in these, and it's really not ever done correctly. So if you know how to do the newsletter, you can do it. I'm hoping to get an example to plug in here one day. Okay, so let's say you want to use a college newsletter. You'll just click on this, and you can just download. You know, oops, you probably got to sign in to the account to download it. So most of us have a account to sign in. I'm not going to sign in on mine, but this is kind of what a newsletter could look like right here. Okay. There's other templates you can use. If you're unsure about the template, let me know, but there should be a reference page as well on, or but you could do it on a new page of, like, when you do a template, you can create a new page, put the references there, or you can strategically put them somewhere in here as well. Okay, so this is the tutorial for the for the stress assignment, stress activity. If you have any questions, please let me know. Hopefully this helps out. Thanks.